Okay, welcome to the second segment on the topic, the education system in Africa. Right. So in the first segment, we talked about how the African child was groomed and taught in mining, farming, hunting, as well as trade. Right. Then colonization came. Africa was divided in Germany. By the process was led by Chancellor Bismarck, right? And they divided Africa into countries because before the Europeans come, Africa was not having countries. The countries was a creation of what? Of the Europeans, so that when they come, they colonize Africa, they won't have friction amongst themselves. We talk about the Great Britain, we talk about France, we talk about Belgium, we talk about Spain, we talk about Italy. These were the major culprits, right? Then, so when Africa was colonized, and every state was colonized in a different manner. So since this is not a history lesson, we won't really explain how the Ndebele Kingdom was taken over, how the Xhosa Kingdom was taken over. I'll just explain in summary. So the Europeans came, they started taking over the land in Africa, and they started establishing schools, which is not a bad thing, so that learning becomes structured, right? But the problem now that was there when education becomes structured, before schools were established, they started taking the fertile land where the black people were living, right? And as you all know that soil can be tested. You can test the soil to identify which soil is fertile, which soil is poor. Others they test with deep scientific means, others even by just looking at the soil, right? And also, they also studied the climatic conditions of Africa, which parts of each country is receiving good rain, sustainable rains for agriculture, and which one is receiving more droughts, which is pathetic for agriculture, which areas have got good soils for agriculture, which soils got bad soil for agriculture. Then, they started allocating themselves land in the good areas with good climate, areas with good soils, right? So now the black majority now were put in reserves. They call them reserves, right? So these are the places now, most of these places where we call what? In South Africa, they call them what? Imakaya. In Zimbabwe, we call them Reserva. In other countries, I would just say what? Rural areas. Right? And we even call them our ancestral lands. Let me tell you this, those are not even our ancestral lands. If you really go back and check what is your ancestral land, it's the land that was taken away from you. These are the areas where the current fertile farms are right now. Right? I don't want to sound political in this topic because we are mainly dealing with education. But we cannot really talk about education, don't talk about land. Why? Because it was done deliberately. Right? So now the African child is going to school. But the African child who's going to school is no longer being taught about mining, which was the backbone of his ancestors when they were active in running the economy. He's no longer being taught about farming. He's no longer being taught about hunting. He's no longer being taught about trade. Right. So the education system now that is grooming the African child during colonization is producing a very obedient worker, right? Who is going to work for a company that is there, a worker who is not innovative, who is only waiting to be told do 1 + 1 = 2. A worker who cannot ask why, when, how. It is right. So colonization, right? It was a deliberate act at the end of the day, especially in education. That's why even if you find that during colonization in many countries, South Africa, Zimbabwe, Malawi, Zambia, the white child and the black child were not learning in the same school. They even have different curriculum or different syllabuses. Right? One was being trained to own the means of the economy. One was being trained to be a worker in the economy. Right. So now, at the end of the day, right, the African who were done at school were getting jobs in industries, getting jobs as housewives, so as maids, as general workers in many other parts. Right. It was fine then, but the working conditions were not so good. But if you check now, so some African kids even got scholarships to go and study abroad, right? To go and study in Europe under scholarships, right? But one thing that was blocked for the African child was to come back and own the mining industry the way it was before colonization, to own the farming industry the way it was before colonization, to own the hunting industry before colonization. The African child was blocked to come back and own a trade. Now you couldn't just produce your own things and say, I want to sell to someone who is in Malawi or who is in Zambia. There were now laws and regulations governing trade. Right. So now if you don't have a license to trade something out there, now you couldn't do it anymore. So it means now the economy was controlled, that you can only be a worker as a black person. So the access that we used to have to just go to, that was so easy to trade with the Chinese, with the Portuguese, with the Swahili merchants. It was closed because now there's a border now. To leave the border, you now need a passport. If you think of hunting an elephant, you now go to jail. If you think to go and get a bit of gold, even in your ancestral land without a license, it's illegal. You'll be arrested. Right. Now you have to do farming. But the farming now you are doing it in a land that was given by the colonial masters. After they've studied the soil, they've realized that this soil is poor. There is no sustainable farming that can be done there. You try to do maize, but you don't get much. Right. So you have to invest in balls, you have to invest in, but still the land is small. During colonization, that privilege that the African child had, that if I'm living in an area like Mpumalanga that is rich in minerals, like coal, or living in Botswana where it's rich in diamonds, living in Zimbabwe, Mazoe area, Bindura, rich in gold, you had the privilege that your uncles, your grandfathers, and all the elders of the community would teach you how to mine, would teach you how to purify gold, would teach you how to mine iron and purify it, would teach you how to make tools, how to make weapons. But this privilege, this right was taken away during colonization. So after colonization, what was left in the hands of the black child? What was left? I'm not being a crybaby, but this is the reality. What is left in the plate of a black child? The access to mining that was there before colonization, it was easy, but now it's so complicated, it's so difficult, and the mining industry has been associated with criminality across Africa. Go to DRC, blood diamonds. Go to Libya, blood diamonds. Right. Even gold mining in South Africa, there's the Zamazamas. In Zimbabwe, there's the Makorokoza. Right. And it's associated with the violence every now and then. Right. So what went wrong? Something that was done in a very peaceful manner, and the whole society would benefit from it in a tangible, in a clear manner. All of a sudden, it's gone. Where did we lose in Africa? What really happened during colonization? There are many things, many rules were put, the education system that was put. Learning was never a bad thing, because even before colonization, some advanced kingdoms like the Kingdom of Mali, they were even having universities. Right. They were even learning. The city of Timbuktu, there was a university there, they were learning. Right. So learning was never a bad thing, but it was the contents of what was being learned or what was being taught that derived us of our focus, of our rights. And now mining is being even associated with being thuggish, or you have to be brave for you to go into mining because of high criminality that is there. But this was a very good and viable economic activity before colonization. So what went wrong? Okay, this can be a very long topic. Let's end it here and we talk about the last part, education after colonization. Thank you.